I've discovered getting into this other state, more of that ventral vagal, which is, you said safe and connected. I like to think about how it creates room for openness, whereas sympathetic is like kind of guarded
and closed in.
And dorsal is totally shut down. You're listening to the Better Relationships After Baby podcast, where I believe things can actually be better than ever after having kids. But it takes intentional conversation, personal growth, and community to get there. I'm Chelsea Skaggs, life and relationship coach, fellow mom and wife, and lover of taboo topics. I'm here to give you insight, practical tools, and conversations to help your relationships survive and thrive through the big changes of parenthood. Let's get into today's episode. What is not intimate sexual connection energy is feeling touched the fuck out as a mother. And I have done episodes on this before, but recently I got to do a podcast on Securely Attached with Dr. Sarah, and she is fabulous, and I love talking with her. And we got into the Polyvagal Theory a little bit, which we'll explain a little bit more in a moment. But we were talking about that. We were talking about the nervous system, and we wanted to explore what this looks like in the context of touch out.
Yeah. All right.
Do you remember touch out being a big part of our relationship? I mean, it's not so much anymore. There are days still now and then, but.
Yeah. Honestly, not really. I mean, it's been funny. The days that I have been with the kids, I think you were, I don't know, out all day working, meetings. And then when you finally came back, I had been with the kids all day, and like you were feeling like. I was
in the mood.
Yeah.
Energized.
And I'm like.
I had been in nice clothes all day.
Yeah. And I'm like, I've been with the kids all day. They've been hanging on me. And like, I literally am not in the mood at all. Mm-hmm. So.
But do you... My original question, I think.
Right. That's the only time I feel like it has come up in a long time. So I think.
Do you remember it being a part of my experience when the kids were really little?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because for me, it was like the moment that a lot of parents know, you know, like specifically moms, but you just gave a great example that this can happen.
To anyone.
Yeah. This can happen for dads, but probably not in the same context.
Sure, yeah.
Where, like, even just a gentle touch, way too much.
Way too much.
Overstimulated your whole system. I remember just feeling this, like, visceral feeling in my body. Yeah. I was like, get away.
Yeah.
Back off.
I remember that.
And it wasn't so personal to you because I did miss you.
Right.
I wanted to have connection with you. So it was a frustrating place to be where I wanted to be close, but your body being close to me was too much sometimes.
Yeah. And I remember that because it was like early in our relationship enough that I came home, I had positive feelings toward you. I wanted to make you feel good. Like, I think I was probably, when I touched you, it was not probably even sexual, some kind of sexual advance, but like comfort or something like that. And it did feel personal because you're like, don't touch me. And I'm like, okay. But I mean, that did happen. It happened, and it's confusing. It's like, did I do something wrong? Did I say the wrong thing? Am I not wanted anymore? So you kind of start doubting yourself in the relationship and you kind of pull away from each other. It gets messy really quick and nobody means for it to.
Yeah. So let's talk more in this episode about what's actually happening in those moments, like what we have been discovering as we are digging into this and confirming what we already thought, which is that it's not that your relationship is broken when you don't have that or desire that connection in that way.
Right.
It's that your nervous system is trying to protect you. Like you said, there is some science behind it that we've been able to pool. And it shows how couples drift without even realizing it and what you can do.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll touch on the polyvagal theory and what that even means, just so you can start incorporating that into your ideas and reflections on your relationship. We'll share probably a couple more of our own stories and some ways that we've found you can help with this when it's a struggle.
So, all right, let's nerd out for a second.
Okay, fine.
Because, I mean, understanding the nervous system is one of the most freeing things that you can do as a couple. Like, it frees you up from the cycles and just the bullshit we fall into. And your body has three main states. I remember learning about this in college, and then almost immediately after the next time I was learning about it, like in a kindergarten teacher training, which was pretty cool. But there's these three states of the brain. This is definitely an oversimplification, but it's, or overgeneralization, whatever. I mean, but these three states, it still makes sense. There's the fight or flight, which is one of the states.
Yeah.
Oh, there's the limbic system, which is the emotional sort of state. You see that in all kinds of mammals, really. And then there's the sort of prefrontal cortex, which is in, like, you're completely safe and grounded and you're connected and your whole brain's online. But that relates in the polyvagal theory, that relates to actual physical systems.
Okay.
And I think Stephen Porges is the man's name.
Yeah, Dr. Stephen Porges.
Dr. Stephen Porges. Yeah. But there's ventral vagal. This is your safe, connected state. Like, that's the ideal. Sympathetic is fight or flight mode. And then dorsal is like complete shutdown.
And I think it's helpful for me to look at some examples of what you experience in those. So kind of, I'm going to go from the ground up. That dorsal vagal is like, I am detached. Mm-hmm. Maybe I'm hopeless. I feel numb. It's that shutdown mode. And then the sympathetic, you have your walls up. You're on guard. Mm-hmm. You're on high alert.
Yeah. It's funny that it's called sympathetic, because
there's no feels so rude.
There's no sympathy in that situation that I can think of.
Yeah, and I think that is where I realized I was living for the last 8 years until pretty recently, more often in that high alert, because the kids were such a risk and there's so many things to be on alert from. And so recently I've discovered getting into this other state, more of that ventral vagal, which is, you said safe and connected. I like to think about how it creates room for openness, whereas sympathetic is like kind of guarded
and closed in.
And dorsal is totally shut down. But ventral vagal is like, I'm open, I'm curious, I'm playful, I'm engaging the world around me. I know we're going to get more into this, but I just want to say it can be really, really tough to make playful, kind, open, vulnerable connections with your partner when these other aspects of your life are so fight or flight. Yeah. And I think of that for parents in so many ways, but specifically if there are parents who are at home with young children most of the time.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I think that makes total sense. And that's like in the early days before our daughter was born, and you would like flinch just when I was trying to rub your shoulders or put a comforting hand on your back.
It wasn't about you. And I remember how hard it was.
At the time, it felt like it was about me.
Right.
And I feel like a lot of relationships are, like, that's normal, because it's like, okay, you've always responded, like, why,
Right. And like, you're the only person I'm choosing to have this kind of connection with.
Yeah.
And you don't even want it with me.
Yeah.
I'm sure that was confusing.
Yes.
And I didn't have the words at the time, which is why I love going back and sharing these stories, because I want to give people language to move through things more quickly than we were able to.
Yeah.
Less stressful than we were able to. But I didn't have the language at the time to say, my nervous system is maxed out. This isn't about you. It was just like, don't touch me. I don't know why. I can't handle it.
Yeah. And the crazy thing is, like, neither of us knew any of this back then about like your nervous system or polyvagal theory, none of that stuff. we just felt like we weren't clicking.
Right. Yeah, that was so interesting to be like, why are we not in love? What's going on? And to recognize, I think it's really freeing to recognize that there's a lot of biology and very natural occurrences that aren't so personal.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Yeah. For me, disconnection used to, early in our relationship, I think sex was a primary connection in a lot of situations. Everything was bundled in there, like emotional intimacy was there. It was just like a main line for me to feel connected to you in our relationship. And then when that wasn't happening, I felt pretty disconnected.
Yeah.
And the good and the bad is there were other ways of connection that got developed, which is really valuable.
Sure.
But it could have been a little smoother.
I was going to say how I have to admit, before having language and understanding of relationships in general, because ding, 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 nobody really trains you on your relationship as you become parents and everything changes. I mean, we do now, but we didn't feel like that was available. And it felt like I don't know what to do for you because I'm touched out by this tiny human who has no other option.
Yeah. And I remember you saying something like that to me.
I think I said, you're a grown-ass man. Take care of yourself. I have this helpless little human.
I think that's pretty much
exactly what I said.
Yeah, you remember it. Well, it's almost like you're close, but you're miles away. So close, but so far. And it is weird. It's like a tension because you do, like you are physically close and then like psychologically, emotionally not, but also kind of like physically not. You want to and don't want to.
Yeah.
So, but it's, it's about understanding the nervous system state you're in.
Yeah. And when you can understand more of that, and we're not suggesting you need to go out and become an expert on this and be able to teach a college level course, but maybe we can link a couple of good podcast episodes that explain polyvagal theory so that people can take a next step and have a new idea. Dr. Sarah from Securely Attached actually had Dr. Steven on her podcast. So I'm going to link that down below.
That's cool.
Just so that we have this knowledge to then be able to say, I know where I'm stuck right now, or I'm in shutdown. I don't have a lot of capacity to work with right now. Yeah. That awareness is so important, and it gives you the power to make a change. But when we're not taught information and we don't know how to name it, then we don't have the power to implement change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
I want to throw in one more part to that.
Yeah, go for it.
Which is the mental load that impacts this.
Oh, okay,
I won't ever skip a chance to talk about the mental load. But there is research out there for this as well. Pew did a 2023 report that shows that women are significantly more likely to carry that hidden labor, which we've talked about before, the appointments, the worries, the constant multitasking. And so that I explain as like all the open tabs in the brain, and that kind of keeps you guarded. That keeps you out of that open, curious state that we want more of.
Yeah. And we read something earlier that talked about like the stress that accumulates, not necessarily like real intense flashbang kind of stress, but just like the gradual accumulating stuff. The terminology in the book or wherever we read it was like it decreases your vagal tone.
Yeah.
And that's so like even that wears down your ability to be in the headspace you want to be or the nervous system space you want to be in.
So I think the part we care the most about with this topic is the understanding that you can't always regulate yourself alone.
True.
Or maybe how I should say that is that when you have the opportunity to co-regulate with another safe human, that can be key. Yeah. And it seems that we are literally wired to borrow that energy and that calm from each other. So if just one person in the relationship can start showing up more grounded and present,
Yeah.
that's like literally handing a life raft to your partner. And
Mhm.
a lot of times we have found that the kind of inner work and growing and learning, sometimes we've taken turns. So
Mhm.
sometimes I'm learning how to be really good at my nervous system,
Mhm.
and sometimes you are. I mean, sometimes we both are. But the thing is that it doesn't exist in its own orbit. You taking care of yourself helps me, and me taking care of myself helps you.
Oh yeah, that's a great way of looking at it. And I think like we do, you have mentioned co-regulation, like we can do this individual work with ourselves, but let's say I'm dysregulated and you're in a good space,
Mm-hmm.
so I can go away. This happened a lot of times where I'm like, I'm just so overwhelmed, I need to go and sit in the quiet and meditate for a while or something because my brain is crazy. um, and then we ended up talking, and I like got to the place I wanted to be and needed to be really quickly, like a
Oh,
lot more quickly than I would
yeah.
have, um, had I gone off and tried to, sit through it or breathe through it or any of that,
Yeah.
those other sort of self-use tools.
Yeah. And I think a switch that was really important for us was recognizing, I think going both ways, that we don't always want to be fixed. We want to be
Mhm.
sat with, heard,
Yeah, and that does fix you.
comforted.
That's funny.
But sometimes we rush so much to how can I fix this for you?
Right.
And then I'm all jittered and my energy is anxious and that doesn't feel good for you. But I'm like, here, let me help you get better.
Yes, that was overwhelming. Um, yeah, no, I think that's totally true. You're making a great point.
Okay, cool. Because I'm just, I guess, offering that no one needs to go out and fix their partner and diagnose where they are in the polyvagal theory and
Yeah.
be an expert of this, but it's like your awareness.
Yeah, the stuff to know is like how to show up with presence and patience,
Right.
and we were talking about this morning. um when you look at someone, pre- predominantly their life experience, what their experience for them of how life is happening is really this so much influenced by their nervous system state.
Yeah.
And so if are seeing that someone in your family is stressed out, and maybe yelling, or like, it doesn't have to be personal when you think about it, like, oh, what does their nervous system need? Like, it's showing signs of distress.
Yeah. Yeah. Because sometimes in an argument, we could identify that what I just threw at you wasn't necessarily meant to be about you. It was
Uh-huh.
like my little nervous system inside
Uh-huh.
crying for help. Like it's just out of control and I'm in
Yeah.
fight or flight and this doesn't feel good. And
Yeah. Yep.
yeah. Oh my goodness. Okay. Can we talk about some of the like ways to be intentional about that co-regulation?
Well, when you're already maxed out, I mean, even thinking about fixing your relationship can be overwhelming. So like, you're touched out, your mental load is high, and then you're kind of tense with each other and you're disconnected, and then trying to even bring about like, oh, now we got to work on our relationship.
Yeah.
Is like, I can't deal with this.
Yeah.
I've got enough to deal with.
Yeah. And so there are some ways, I think we've talked about like just two easy ones,
Mm-hmm.
eye contact and co-regulating breath work.
Yeah. Love those.
So I think a lot of people find it hard
mm-hmm.
to keep eye contact
Yeah.
for more than 15 seconds or so. It kind of like, it's vulnerable.
Yeah. Especially when you're feeling stressed as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, I don't, like, you can see into my soul, you can see my stress, you can see my, I don't know if everyone feels like that, but it's like when everything feels chaotic on the inside, it's uncomfortable.
It is.
To look someone in the eye.
It's uncomfortable and
mm-hmm.
almost like not flipping a switch, but it can be really powerful.
Yeah, breathing through it, like looking into the other person's eyes
Uh-huh.
and breathing is like things begin to settle.
Yeah. It literally feels like if the stress was all the way to the tippy top of my head, like every breath is like
out.
the waves receding or
And that's, like we have also done there's got to be a cool name for this, but we just called it like the 5 breath hug. I need a 5 breath hug.
Yeah.
But in yin yoga, they do a 5 breath count. I think that's yin. But if you're like in a stretch, it's at about 4 breaths that the tension releases and you go deeper into the stretch, and it's a state of like surrender and relaxation. And that is a shift to your nervous system as well. And so holding your partner, that physical touch is also going to be beneficial. And so you hug, which has its impact, and then you hug for 5 breaths. And so usually by 4 or 5, there is a release. And that is a dramatic shift. So the eye contact and the 5 breath hug, the breathing through with the eye contact, those are dramatic shifts that move you in the right direction.
I think what sucks about that is that it's the most uncomfortable when you need it the most.
So sometimes you actually probably need a little space to yourself.
Sure.
There's really no other way around it sometimes when you're just really a mess.
But there are, I think those are 2 really good tools that are accessible and very powerful. Mm-hmm. 2 other things I wanted to mention. One, will you grab that deck? Any of them. Yeah. The Love Lingual. These are the cards that we use. And I'll link those below, but they are conversation starters meant to explore and deepen your connection with your partner. And so you can take turns answering just as a way to kind of check in and
start the conversation too.
Start a conversation, get in the talking space, and then be able to open up a little bit. And instead of going straight from like high stress, protective, sympathetic to trying then to be like
fully vulnerable, open.
All right, now let's have this vulnerable conversation right now. You're not leaving until we do.
So sometimes coming at it indirectly is helpful.
Yes.
And I'm going to actually read a couple of these.
Okay.
So if we as a couple had a theme song, what would it be?
I love the song we danced to at our wedding. And I don't even remember this. I think the name is All I Want Is You. But it's like, if I was a flower you're a tree, all I want is you to do. It's a vibe.
It's true. Yeah. And another song at our wedding was the song where they say, "Shut up and dance with me."
Yes. That's
also a vibe.
Yeah. Those are good. Those are good. Okay. One more.
Okay.
We got to wrap up.
What do you remember thinking to yourself the first time you saw me?
He's not wearing a ring.
Yeah. That's funny.
Little did I know you had been married and divorced already, but besides the point. What about you when you saw me?
I was deep in the practice of, like, you could say Buddhism. I wasn't really ascribing to that per se, but it was like a space of non-judgmental observation.
Yeah.
And so I was trying to like not have any opinions or thoughts and just like experience you. So the I don't remember. I didn't want to talk to anybody when we first met, and I was sitting in the back of a room trying to not be talked to, and you went out of your way to come back and talk to me. So my first thought was, this is annoying.
And you haven't stopped thinking that since. No, I'm kidding. Every now and then, maybe.
Definitely.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Okay. So warming up with conversation, like just from that, I'm like, like I feel a little more open and playful with you. So that is really helpful. And we also created a reconnection kit for couples, which was just made to have some low pressure, easy ways to explore connection again, especially when you've been living in that sympathetic or dorsal, like lower levels, and you haven't had a lot of emotional openness and connection. So that kit, the reconnection kit that we have, and I'll link that below too, has conversation starters. It has activities you can do even if you have 5 or 10 minutes, and ideas for connection that aren't just physical. So that was created because we knew early on that we would be like, we need to connect, damn it.
Mm-hmm.
How do we connect? What do we do? I'm so overwhelmed. I can't think.
Calm down and open up together.
Yeah. So we created that to have kind of the hand holding and ease that we wish we would have had. If you enjoyed this episode, I would be so grateful if you take a minute to help spread the word. As a small business owner, shares and reviews go a long way. So share this episode with a friend, share it on your social media, and please leave a review if you haven't done so. This helps these messages get to more mamas, and you guys, that's how we change the world.